All right. So, are you hungry for details on how to get your marriage to be amazing and be the marriage of your dreams? Then you have clicked on the right place because that's what we're here for. We're
Yeah.
here to help your Christian marriage thrive. So, you've just tuned in to an episode of Breakfast with Mark and Jen. And we promise you that your married life will never be the same.
It'll never be the same.
All
In a
right.
good way.
In a good way.
Yeah.
So, today we're going to talk to you about 3 reasons it's actually okay and maybe even healthy to argue with your spouse.
I like it. I like it. I
Now,
like it.
we'll get into a little bit of what wouldn't be healthy, but
Right.
there are some reasons why arguing with your spouse can actually be healthy.
Right.
When we were going through premarital counseling, like 16 and a half years ago, our marriage counselors asked us, have you guys had any arguments yet?
Yep.
And we were honest with them and said, well, yeah, we have.
Yep.
To our surprise, they were like, good, we're so relieved to hear that.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay. And they said to us, the reason why they ask engaged couples if there has been any arguments yet in the relationship is because if the answer is no and the couple's being honest,
Right.
then that's actually a red flag because it means that one party in the relationship is actually passive
Yep.
and not feeling safe enough to give their perspective when things ensue or when a disagreement ensues. So, in other words, they were saying to us, it's good that you've had an argument or that you've
Right.
had arguments because it means that you all are actually normal. You're
Mm-hmm.
two people with two different perspectives, and maybe you've come to one issue and you realize that you don't agree with each other, but you're hashing it out.
Yep.
So that's one of the first reasons why it's actually healthy to argue with your spouse, because if you never have an argument,
Yeah.
then that means you never, I'm going to use air quotes because it's just impossible, have a disagreement.
Yep.
And then that means that the quiet spouse doesn't necessarily agree, they just don't feel assertive enough to give their
Listen.
opinion.
Listen. It's a problem because every or each party in the marriage has a voice. And it doesn't matter how introverted you are or how quiet you are, you have a voice and you want your voice to be valuable.
Exactly.
But a lot of times when one party is too quiet, doesn't want to say anything, then their voice is not being heard, and also they're not feeling valued.
Yeah.
So it's a big problem. Now, Jen, can you think about our first argument? What was our very first argument?
I don't remember.
Come, you have the best memory. That's what
I
you tell
know,
me all
but
the time.
I usually do have a good memory, but I actually can't remember because I know by the time we got to premarital counseling and they asked us have we had arguments
Right,
before, we said yes,
right.
but we were engaged. I don't remember what we argued about first.
Okay. All right. I can't remember either.
Yeah.
I was hoping you could remember. Well,
No,
give
but it's a good
me.
thing I can't remember because then that also means that I'm not holding on to every. Because if I'm remembering an argument from we've been together for 20 years but married for 16. So if I'm keeping a record from 20 years ago, that's a little much.
So what you're saying is that there's folks out there that keep records
Some people
of the
keep
argument.
receipts.
They got receipts.
Listen, I'm the queen of receipts from bills, though, aren't I?
Yeah.
When I pay a bill online, people
You go
say
get
that
that receipt.
people say this is a black people thing. I think it's just a personality thing, though. But I'm that person where even though they say, thank you for your payment, you'll receive an email shortly, I
Right.
still screenshot.
Listen, you just
I
always
still
gotta have
screen
that receipt.
I still screenshot it because if something happens where you didn't email it to me, I have a screenshot that I did pay you. And it's your fault if you didn't email it to me, but you're going to get me for 2 payments in 1 month.
Right. You're such a big receipt person that when you went to Macy's that one time and you had a receipt and you're actually trying to go back because the sensor was left on
Yeah.
one of your pieces of clothing and you had your receipt and you went up to the guy and he was like looking at you side eye as
Right.
if you had stolen it.
Right.
You're like, not with my receipt,
That was
though.
my receipt, and then I asked for management because what you're not gonna do is insult me when I have a receipt. So
That's why you always have your
I got
receipt.
management, and even the lady behind me got involved and was like, "You're speaking to this young lady very disrespectfully." I said,
Yeah.
"Exactly," because I have a receipt. That's a whole other
No, but that's
story.
good information. Why? Because I was asking you to go back
Yeah.
just to kind of see, number one, if you could remember.
Mm-hmm.
If you could remember, it would have been interesting to hear what our first argument was.
Yeah.
Number two, it leads us down the road of receipts.
Mm-hmm.
Because a thing that makes arguments healthy
Yeah.
is if you have released all of the pain and the hurt of the previous arguments. If
Yeah.
you're not harboring or hoarding
Mm-hmm.
a collection of arguments,
Yeah.
then it creates a healthy environment in which you can discuss and in which you can verbalize and voice your
Right.
disagreements.
So it gives you room, gives both parties room to literally start each argument with a clean slate, basically.
One of the worst environments in which to argue is an environment that you're still holding thoughts, pain, animosity from a previous argument. So, what actually compounds arguments is when couples haven't fully let go of what happened last week. And then you come in. Have you never noticed that it's easier to fall into an argument when we've just had an argument recently? Like
I never thought
I've
about that,
noticed
but
that we don't get into heated arguments frequently at all. Like it's
yeah.
so infrequent.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed that we have to be careful of is that when we argue
Mm-hmm.
and have a good argument, the next day we've got to be mindful that one small thing doesn't lead us back down
Yes.
that road of going at each other, and have we fully been detoxed from the previous
Yeah,
argument in
because
order to continue to live life effectively.
yeah, you don't want to have incessant arguing in your marriage either. So we're
Right.
not saying you should live a life of perpetual arguing. That's something that you would want to get a third party like a counselor involved if you
Yeah.
find that for days and weeks on end
Yeah.
all you do is argue nonstop. We're just saying that there are times when arguing can be healthy. So, arguments, number one, let us know that both parties have a level of assertion that they feel comfortable exercising in the marriage. But it's also, to me, Mark, number two, a signal that both parties also have a mind of their own.
Right.
Because if you don't argue and you genuinely want to go along with everything your spouse says, then it either means that you are passive, like we mentioned, or you literally just don't even have a mind of your own. You just
Yeah.
allow people and life to tell you how things are going to go, and you just don't stop to think for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I think it really develops. I think a good thing about arguing is that I didn't want to get to number three yet,
Oh,
but
so you're
since
already
we're
skipping in over number two.
no, but I think it kind of leads to number three. So let me
Okay.
piggyback off of what
Well, no,
you
I don't
said.
want you to forget it, so say it.
No, 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 no. I won't forget it.
Oh God,
Um,
guys, he forgets.
no, I
Okay,
won't forget.
all right,
You have the better memory, but I won't forget.
all
All
right,
right, I'm gonna put it in my long-term slot.
okay.
All right. So having a mind of your own is really critical
Mm-hmm.
and important because the tendency in marriage is to lose your individuality, is
Mm-hmm.
to become so one,
Yeah.
so united that you lose who you are, your own mind, your own thoughts, your
Mm-hmm.
own personality, your own mentality, your own way of thinking. And so it's important, and what arguing does
Mm-hmm.
is that it actually brings to the surface your opinion, brings to the
Mm-hmm.
surface your ability to flex the way that you think.
Mm-hmm.
And that is healthy for the marriage because while you are one, while you are united and together, it's the individuality of both parties that actually produce a successful marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot lose all of who you are and the marriage still be successful. God really
Right.
wants two individuals to come together without losing a sense of their
I
individuality.
like that.
And then that's what produces a healthy
I
marriage.
like how you.
It's a blend. So, you're a big smoothie person, right? And
Yeah.
you love to make you saying yeah with like no emphasis, as if you don't be making smoothies every week.
I
You
actually
know,
have fallen down.
you be making smoothies all the time. I wash dishes in the Watson house, and I just washed the blender
I know.
yesterday,
I know.
which means you just made a smoothie.
I'm just saying, guys, I have fallen down on it. I used to make them every day, but
But the point is that the thing about a smoothie is that you're bringing all these different things together. What's interesting is that sometimes, depending on what you put in the smoothie, it alters the color of the smoothie.
yeah.
So those individual ingredients are essential to how the smoothie looks and how it
Taste.
tastes. And sometimes we can want the smoothie to taste good, but we don't want to insert our own individuality. And we want the marriage to be great, but we don't want to insert ourselves and our own personality.
Yeah, I like how you piggybacked off of my
You like that, right?
comment about having your own mind, because that's what it boils down to
Yeah.
is still being an individual, even though you're part of a unit. So I like that. Now, did you remember number three? Because we're supposed to give them three
Yes.
reasons.
Yes. I
Okay.
think I remember. I don't remember how I had it, but I remember.
Okay. Well, that's good enough.
Number three, arguing is so important in
Oh.
a marriage. It's
Mm-hmm.
so essential because you will learn things about your spouse that you otherwise would have never learned without an argument.
Wow. So arguing leads to discovery.
There is something powerful about a good argument
Interesting.
that'll teach you something about your spouse that you ain't never known.
Oh.
Because something
Okay.
about
Where are we going with this, guys?
Listen, something about an argument brings out what's really down beneath the
Oh my
surface
gosh.
and hidden.
Okay.
I mean, you say it the way you really mean it in an argument. And without the argument, you kind of skirt around the issue,
Mm-hmm.
make it pretty and nice. But when you in that good argument, you're going to let it fly. And you're going to say how you feel. And the other person will be like, okay, I didn't know they felt like that. And there's some good, excellent takeaways
Yeah.
that you gather from an argument because you realize you're like, man, I didn't know my spouse like really felt that way about it. I didn't know it bothered them that
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah.
Like I eat my cereal a certain, not me, right? But for instance, a person eats their cereal a certain way and it bothers you the way that they chew,
Oh yeah. No, he doesn't bother me when he chews.
right? It's not me. But when you get in that good argument, they're gonna be like, and another thing, how you eat your cereal. And it's like, man, I didn't know it bothered you to that level. You mentioned it, but I didn't know I need to fix it. Now I know I need to fix it by the way you coming at me.
That's a good one. That arguing leads to discovery about how your spouse feels about even maybe little things in the marriage
Yeah.
that aren't major. They might be minor things, but they will come out in an argument. I think that is interesting. So then it begs the question, are there unhealthy ways to argue? And there's absolutely unhealthy ways to argue. One of the things that we tell couples that we counsel is that when you argue, stay away from name calling.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times in arguing, you're just trying to, unfortunately, sometimes hit below the belt. Like you're trying to just
Right.
make an impact.
Right.
But you don't want to name call. You don't want to call your spouse a name, because the thing about words is that you really can't take them back. You can apologize for them, but what that phrase really means is that you may apologize, they may forgive you, but the sting is still going to be there for some time, depending
Yeah.
on how low below the belt you hit.
Yeah.
So we say one of the things about arguing is that when you argue, because you can't avoid it in a healthy marriage, is do not name call, no
Yeah.
matter how angry you are.
Yeah. Don't name call and don't allow yourself to say everything. You may be feeling a certain way, you may have a specific thought, but don't allow yourself
Yeah.
to actually say it the way that you feel. So the thing about arguing with your spouse is that you're not arguing with someone on the opposite side.
Mm.
Meaning, you're not arguing with someone from the other team, you're not
Yeah.
arguing with your enemy, you're arguing with your friend.
Yeah.
And that's a different argument. So
Yes.
I'm not arguing with the intent to kill you.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
you shouldn't argue with the
Yeah.
intent to kill the person.
No.
There's couples watching us right now. When they argue, they're trying to kill their spouse.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't argue with the intent to kill them.
No.
You should remember that they're on your team. So
Yeah.
it's a different level of argument.
Right.
It's a different confrontation. It's a different way and manner of speaking.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that. So no name calling, remembering that your spouse ultimately is not the enemy. So you don't want to argue in a way to try and harm them. And you also just want to remember, I think, Mark, this might be a good one, or maybe one that they have to remember at the top of the list is don't take the argument into the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you were talking about with receipts.
Yep.
You know, there are, listen, if you had asked some people, they would have known exactly what the first argument was years ago.
Yeah.
Some people would have known that.
Yep.
But the Bible says to not let the sun go down on your wrath.
Yep.
In other words, God is wise enough to know that not every problem is fixed in a day, but what he's saying is don't let the sun go down on your wrath. He didn't say don't let the sun go down on your challenge, because maybe you've come to a crossroads in your marriage and you have some deep issues that aren't going to be solved after just one counseling session or one prayer session. But don't let the sun go down on your wrath, meaning don't allow the anger, though, to still linger. Don't allow those poisonous, venomous thoughts to still linger. Even if the problem isn't fixed,
Right.
do what you have to do to get rid of the anger, though. Do what you have to do to get rid of the toxic thoughts that maybe you're now thinking towards your spouse. Just don't go to bed like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Bet you never thought that there were 3 reasons we could give you why you should actually argue in your marriage.
Yeah. I think arguing is, people have to get over the fact that arguing is par for the course. Arguing is actually normal.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
People haven't really read the manual of marriage, because if they did, they would realize that all married couples disagree. All married couples will argue at different intervals. It does not mean that somehow the marriage isn't strong and it's not successful. In fact, we're trying to tell you that healthy arguing strengthens your marriage.
Yes,
It
exactly.
strengthens your marriage.
Yeah.
You know, the marriage would be kind of boring if
Uh-oh. If
not
there's no arguments.
if there was no arguing. Marriage would
Okay.
be boring if there were no
Not
arguing.
arguing for entertainment
You
purposes.
argue to entertain. You argue to add some flair and pizzazz. You argue to hype. Why? Why? Because if everything was like a bed of roses, it would make it boring. You need the valleys in your life and in your marriage to produce strength to climb the next mountain. You can't go from mountain
Oh.
to mountain. You go from mountain to valley to mountain.
Oh, that's good.
And it's the season in the valley that says this is the right person for me,
Yeah.
and we could go climb the next mountain. That's why arguments are healthy. You have to get to that low place where you're like, man, this person is really getting on my nerves. You get to this low place, like, why in the world don't they just understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
You're forced to connect. You're forced to get stronger. You're forced to get on the same page. And that is the catalyst that allows you to climb the next mountain.
That's good.
It draws you closer. It's similar to, how God says in the Bible that trials come to make you strong, that you should glory in tribulation, because It works patience. It works experience. It works hope. There's something about putting weight on you,
Mm-hmm.
putting stress on you that isn't enough to break you, but it's enough to build you.
Oh,
And
that's
I think
good.
I think that that's what you have to really realize is that healthy arguing, man, I connect deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we reconnect after arguing,
Guys,
when we reconnect after
I will.
arguing,
I
oh,
will.
that connection is stronger. It's stronger.
I will never. I just will not go there.
Listen,
That's a guy thing to go there. I'm not. You know.
it's and it's amazing how it produces a strong marriage.
Mm-hmm.
The valleys and the arguing. That's why we're like healthy arguing is not a problem.
Yep. That's the key. Healthy arguing.
It's
Incessant, abusive, hurtful arguing is a totally different thing, and we've kind of addressed that. But healthy arguing is the key
yeah.
phrase here. Healthy arguing.
Yeah, healthy arguing. What else you got? I've been talking.
Yeah, I think that I've kind of said what I wanted to say. I
Hmm.
think, lastly, if I would say anything that usually, oh Lord, here come the
Let it
here
fly.
come
Let it
the
go.
here come the I'm not gonna get many amens from the female section
Let's
here, but
go.
it's usually women that are keeping receipts anyway.
Mm.
It's usually women because we're carriers. We're designed to carry children. We're wired for the most part to hold on to things a little bit more, and so it's usually women that do come with receipts because 9 times out of 10 when we look at couples and or we counsel couples, I should say, and they're talking about, my spouse keeps bringing up the past, it is usually the woman that's being accused of bringing up the past because I don't know what it is. I mean,
I
we
like
love
it.
paper receipts,
I
we love
like it.
digital receipts, and for some reason, we seem to love emotional receipts. We love to just rehash things, we love to bring it back. But, ladies, it is not a healthy argument if you're arguing with your husband and maybe a year ago he told you he was going to wash the car and he didn't, and then now you're not even arguing about a car, but all of a sudden you're like, and it's just how you're irresponsible because that's why a year ago on that Tuesday when you didn't wash the car when you were supposed to, and your husband's looking at you like, I didn't even remember I didn't wash the car, like, why are you?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So don't be a
I
woman that
like
keeps
that.
emotional receipts, but still screenshot those bills though. Keep those receipts because those are important.
Listen, I think that's good. I
Yeah.
think that's good. We have to be careful when we argue that we don't use our advantage to become a, stumbling block for our spouse.
Mm-hmm.
I think women have certain advantages. Usually the woman is quicker, more
Mm.
witty, like always got a response.
I know
And
some witty guys though,
I know,
Mark.
I'm just saying usually,
Okay.
right? And no matter what we say, y'all gonna be able to come back. You're gonna be able to come back. And I think the woman, has to be conscious and aware of that
Mm-hmm.
because in an argument, he may be done,
Mm.
but then you go and you go and you go and you keep pushing, and then the car goes over the
Oh,
cliff.
so then I think that's a good point then that arguments also really need to not continue when one spouse has clearly stated, I'm not able to discuss this right now.
Right. That's an unhealthy argument.
Yeah.
That's an
When you
unhealthy argument.
push the person to discuss what they're, and it doesn't mean that if you talk to them later it still won't turn into an argument,
Right.
but I think the party that's saying to you, I can talk about this maybe later but right now I can't, that's actually that your spouse being responsible enough to let you know that either my temper and my emotions are not really where they should be,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm asking you to please table this for later. And it's usually women that again are the ones that are like, no, we're going to discuss this now, and the guy is telling you now is not a good time. And it's usually the woman poking the bear. Got to discuss it now. Got to discuss it now. Then when he says something crazy, you're like, see, you don't care about my feelings. He's like, but I told you I didn't want to talk now.
Listen.
It's just this whole It's this
It's
whole thing. But do not argue with your spouse if they're telling you, I can't discuss this right now. There's a reason they can't. So just
yeah.
believe them.
You gotta believe them. And the other thing, Jen, is that this is such a good talk because we're trying to teach you why you should argue and then kind of help you to argue effectively,
Yeah.
right? And I think every couple has to get to a place where we say, okay, arguments can be good for the marriage, but we have to develop these lines and know where the lines are. When you start talking to your spouse and then communicating with them, know where their line is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you may have a spouse that says, you know what? I've had enough. I'm walking away. That
Mm-hmm.
could be the woman, that could be the man.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, when you get to that point, but then you going to chase them
Mm-hmm.
and continue it. I think that we have to know where the lines are, because every fight has rules.
Mm.
Every good fight, unless you're trying to kill someone, like unless they're
Oh
your
my gosh, why
enemy,
you
and
keep going there?
because like street
Guys,
fights,
a little morbid today. My
if
goodness.
we're in a street fight, I can do what I'll bite your face off.
Oh my
We'll do
gosh.
whatever we gotta do so that we don't lose.
Oof.
That's a street fight.
Oof. Oh, I've never been in a fight. Like I've literally never been in a physical
I know,
altercation, so
I
I don't
know.
know.
But if you're in a fight that is structured, a fight that will have results and produce something like a boxing match,
I'll just fight you in prayer because God's going to get you in a way that I can't. So you can run up on me if you want to. If you run up on me on the streets, I'm going into my prayer language and God's going to look at all the times I spent in my prayer closet and you are not going to like it. You're not going to like it. So run up on me and see if you don't get tongues like you nor I have ever heard before. And you're not going to like it.
anyway.
You're not going to like it.
Well, I was saying is there's rules. And so in order for the fight or the argument to be productive, you got to have rules.
Yeah.
And you
Because
kind
there
of got
are
to
rules
know.
in
You
boxing
can't hit
and
below the belt. You
yeah.
can't bite somebody's ear like Mike Tyson. You can't. You'll get disqualified. This is not that type of fight. You know, we're married. This is not that type of fight.
Yeah.
You can't get physical. This is not that type of fight. You can't
But even though
say
wrestling
that.
isn't real, I'm sure there's still rules,
There's
right?
rules.
Yeah.
You can get disqualified. So I just feel it's just important that we kind of give all these different angles and perspectives to arguing
Yeah.
that will help all of us say, hey, if we're married, we will argue,
Yeah.
but we'll also be better for it and we'll also be successful if we know a few things about
Yeah.
arguing.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right? So listen, before we get up out of here, we want you to remember and be reminded of the fact that we have a 6-week marriage course
Yes.
that will really bless your marriage. We talk about so many things during these little morning talks and these YouTube videos, but there are some hidden gems, a lot of things that we put time into, put prayer into, that you won't get on YouTube, but you'll get in this marriage course. And we want you to click the link below and go ahead and grab it because it's really going to help you and your spouse become successful together. Or you could tell somebody else about it and share it because there's a lot of marriages going through struggle, pain, adversity, and we just want to help your marriage win.
Absolutely.
All right?
Yep.
So we about to get up out of here. This has been another episode of Breakfast with Mark and Jen, and we will catch you next time. Take care.